Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I am your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down for episode number 2 in our series with Jimmy, the IT director of a large subcontractor construction company. And today we're going to talk more about what Jimmy would advise others to do to help prevent these types of attacks in their business and to mitigate those risks associated with should you be hit. So thanks again, Jimmy. Excited to sit down with you again today and hear more about the story.
Thanks, Mike, for having me again. Appreciate it.
You bet. So last time we talked about this ransomware attack. Can you just give a little bit of background at the beginning here, and then maybe we'll talk about kind of what happened afterwards?
Yeah, so Mike, the threat actors came in through a Microsoft OWA vulnerability. It's called the China Chopper. And so just a vulnerability that Microsoft had at that particular time. They came in, staged on one of our servers, and then deployed about 15 hours later. And then the following morning, I was notified by a user that he couldn't get into his Excel files. And so that started the whole ransomware recovery procedure.
So did you end up interacting with the attackers, or how did your communication go from there?
So I didn't in particular. We had ransomware cybersecurity insurance, which I would advise any company get. Okay. And so what the insurance company does is they have individuals that act as us, and they communicate and negotiate with the threat actors. And what they do is they also kind of try and figure out if they've exfiltrated any data, what kind of data they've seen, how long were they on the network, trying to reduce the ransom, things like that.
Got it. So I don't know if
I didn't have time for that.
Yeah,
I was trying to recover.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So are you at liberty to share how much they tried to get initially and whether it changed over time or not?
So the first initial ransom was $2 million.
Wow.
And then after 72 hours, if the ransom wasn't met, it went to $4 million.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a number.
Wow.
It was shocking.
That's crazy. And did they want it in crypto? How did they want to get paid?
Yeah, they wanted it in Bitcoin.
Wow. So what was the initial takeaway from that attack that you learned, step one, like what do I need to do?
Well, we learned as an IT staff is we had no visibility in the network. And what I mean by visibility is what do you have in place as far as software controls to see devices that are unprotected with endpoint protection, malware protection, right? Do you have any software in place to monitor file behavior? Files are moving, laterally, or doing anything that is out of the norm, because you can get software that monitors and trends all of your files coming in and going out of your network, and it kind of says, okay, this is normal behavior. This is not normal behavior. What do you want to do with it? So network visibility is crucial in being able to, see what's going on in your network. If you don't have that, it's kind of like going into war in the dark. Where's your attacker? You have no idea. You can't see them.
Yeah, interesting analogy. So how were you able to protect those client servers and your data from that point?
So moving forward, we implemented a different endpoint protection that will see file behavior on an endpoint. It can quarantine it. It can roll back the software to a previous good known version. So that's huge. It's on endpoints. When I say endpoints, I mean workstations and servers, and also isolated backup server, like I did previously.
So now, with hindsight obviously being 2020, what are some other things that you've really adjusted and beefed up within your entire network, and also just how you guys do business every day?
That's very interesting. And that goes based on, how secure do you want to be as a company? Because you can be so secure where you lock all your users out and they can't get very much done. So meeting with my staff, we didn't want to do that to the users. One of the first things we did was we created a password policy for every user, and we increased that to a minimum of 14 characters from 8.
Okay.
And so we also, Microsoft patching, security patches, that's huge, right? We implemented software patching process to where we can patch all of our devices from one portal, because you have updates come out every Tuesday. Some people update every day, every Tuesday, once a month. We prefer to have our devices patched as soon as a patch comes out. That way we can sleep at night knowing that we've done our due diligence as far as patching all of our devices.
So how do you protect your network from new devices coming in? What if somebody brings in, an iPad or something that, isn't authorized? I mean, do you have anything in place that helps mitigate those types of risks?
Yeah. So we have, when it goes back to network visibility, we have a product that will let us know of any device that is not protected. So when we find that out, then we'll go confiscate that device and install software on it. But it's scanning continuously.
Okay.
For devices that are not protected.
So when you say protected, what does that mean to you, and what should that mean to the listener?
So protected, as far as, somebody brings a laptop in, they connect to the network, which is going to be very hard for them to do anyways. If that were to happen, we'll know instantly, hey, this device is on the network and it doesn't have this.
Okay.
And so at that point in time, my IT manager can go in and quarantine that device. And what that does, that disconnects it from any network connectivity.
Okay.
Just like that, instantly.
So they can't get in. No other device has access to the network because of this software, right?
That's correct. It's the all-seeing eye.
The eye of, is it Sauron or?
Yeah.
Cool.
We've also removed the Wi-Fi networks
Okay.
off of personal devices. That way, because you never know if somebody's phone or their iPad is compromised with some sort of app. You just never know. Some of the things that we've done is we have locked down all USB devices, ports on laptops, desktops, copiers. If anyone needs to plug in a USB device, it is IT approved. When it's done, we go and lock it back down. We've also removed the access of internet email.
Okay.
Anybody that has internet email on their desktop, Wi-Fi, we've removed access to that because somebody could download a potential file, from their personal email and just, give us some issues there. So we're trying to add layers of security. It's just like your house, right? You have your initial lock, then you have your deadbolt, some sort of other lock, then you have your alarm, then you have your dog, then you have your gun. It slows down the threat actor. At some point in time, do they get frustrated and move on?
Got it. That's a great analogy. And I think, and just for the listeners to understand, I mean, Jimmy's going through a list of a checklist that you could use to start working through your systems and your processes and see, where do we have gaps that don't measure up to the preparations that Jimmy's put in place to try and avoid this from happening again, right? So if you were making a list of important things, most important things that the listeners should do to prepare for a possible attack, what would that list look like?
Number one on that list would be endpoint protection.
Okay.
Okay. Network visibility, removing the local administrator access on computers, and then, of course, multi-factor authentication
Hmm.
on processes like, VPN access, RDP access, things of those natures.
Okay, that's
You know, ob-
just for the listeners, like two-factor authentication, and they got to get a text somewhere. They've got to authenticate somewhere different. They got to add an additional password, right?
that's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Do you recommend that they outsource to a professional firm that helps prevent this kind of thing if they don't have those resources? How does somebody get started?
Well, I would recommend that they consult a cybersecurity architect for a customized security plan. That cyber security expert can come in, spend a week evaluating your systems, how your users do things, what your servers are, and then give you a plan of security. They can also do a disaster response plan in the event that you do get hit. What's your DR plan? That's very important. We have a disaster recovery plan that we implement, and then we've also adjusted since our issue. Um, they can also put together a penetration test.
Okay.
What areas are you vulnerable?
Okay.
So when you put measures in place, security measures in place, then you get an outside firm to have do a pen test. And that's a really good test to see, okay, what areas do I have holes in my firewall, in my network?
Yeah.
And that can be very embarrassing, but at the same time, you swallow your pride, be like, okay, cool. I got that. I need to shore up that hole. It makes you feel a little bit better. As an IT director, you never sleep well
Mhm.
because you have to try and be one step ahead of that guy that's trying to get into your network.
Well, you mentioned before your number one job is to protect the company's data. So it's always going to be at risk as long as you're on a network somewhere. I mean, every time we come out with a technology to work around these things and prevent against them, it seems like these hackers are, cracking the nut and figuring out how to get around it.
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, they're software as a service companies, right? They have CEOs, they have VPs, they run business very well. They have developers. They buy the products that we buy. They test them. They do R&D. They know how they work. Therefore, they know how to get around it.
Mm.
That that brings me to the point where the leaders of these companies that we're speaking to right now need to get with your IT professionals. What conferences are you going to?
Mm.
What security softwares are you looking up? Because you have to try and be one step ahead of these guys. If you're not, they're gonna get you. 80% of people that get hit and pay ransom get hit again because the mindset is, oh, we already got hit. They're not gonna hit us again. No, you just paid. Guess who's gonna pay again? You. But most people, we have a bi-weekly meeting with a security professional, and we hear all the time how people don't take advice in IT security, and it always bites them. I was talking to a guy Tuesday, recovering from a ransomware attack, no endpoint protection.
So if you were giving a bullet list to an IT, uh, well, I should say, if you were giving a bullet list to an owner or an executive of a company that has some IT resources internally, what are the questions that they need to ask them first and initially to really get the ball rolling and figure out what the gaps are?
So to answer that, it would be, how is our data protected from an attack or damage? Okay. Next thought is, do we have a disaster recovery plan in place? Next thought is, do we have backups? If so, how often are we backing up and where are we backing up? How often goes back to the application of that server. Is it a payroll server, email server? Is it a file server? Depending on the application will depend on how often you back up. Payroll servers, so you back up one day, server goes down, all of a sudden, oh, we just lost that day. But if you're backing that server up every 15 minutes, guess what? You only lost 15 minutes of work, possibly, if your infrastructure can handle it. And then where is huge, right? So if you're backing up on premise in your data center and your data center catches on fire and your backups are there and you have no cloud presence of backups, well, guess what? That's a bad day. And then Neil was going to ask you, well, why would you do that? That's kind of common sense. So you get those backups off-prem, also with a cloud presence. Because like I said, one is none, two is one.
So when you talk about, I mean, I know you've referenced a few times how critical and important that data is. I mean, I've heard you say, data is king. I mean, what does that even mean? Like, why is data such an important piece of running and operating a business? And what should somebody be worried about if they don't have that?
Well, we didn't have our data for 10 days. Well, guess what we didn't do for 10 days? Nothing. Our laborers worked, but the office, we weren't able to do AR, AP, billing. I mean, there are so many things we couldn't do as a company. I mean, we almost weren't able to pay employees in the field. And when you can't do that, you lose people. And when you lose employees, you lose business. And if you're a certain size company, you lose enough people quickly, that can be very devastating to the longevity of your company.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've said in the past, data is king. Protecting your data is absolutely the most important function of an IT department. And I would challenge every leader listening to this. Ask your director, ask your manager. I want to see the data that's being protected. Where's the backup? I want to see where it says successful. And you might get some, if somebody is, we have some software that's backing up. Sometimes it'll say unsuccessful because it just missed one file or whatever. It'll correct itself. Okay. But if you're backing up consistently, daily, hourly, every 15 minutes, once a week with a full backup, you can rest assured that your IT guy is doing what he needs to do. Do a restore process. I mean, take one or two files and restore it to a different location.
Yeah. You're saying do a dry run of, let's practice. Let's practice this. If you've got a disaster recovery plan for your data, let's try it. Let's make sure it works, right?
Just like when you're changing code on your software, you don't just roll it out.
Right. Yeah.
You practice. You want to make sure it works.
Yeah. Many times, right?
Yes, sir.
And with 10 times the data set you ever think you're going to need, because you want to really make sure, right?
Sure.
So from a listener standpoint and the value of data, I mean, what is there any analogies or anything else you can share to just put a exclamation point on the critical nature of protecting that data. Is there anything you use to explain to people how critical it is and why it matters so much?
I would answer that by saying it's the heartbeat of everything.
Mm.
I mean, and what happens if you have no heartbeat? You don't have much there.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the one file that somebody in accounting uses all the time. For some reason, that file goes bad. It can bring that person's world down.
Mm.
Just that one file. So
Yeah.
you tell me how important one data file is compared to, let's say, 60 terabyte of data that holds the entire company in production.
Yeah. So what are the most common vulnerabilities? I mean, where do these issues really start, and are they commonly manifested?
Vulnerabilities come from lack of software patching.
Okay.
We always hear, patch servers, patch, Windows and this and that. And, you hear so much, it's like you get jaded to it. Okay.
Mhm.
You cannot get jaded to it. It's kind of like somebody tells you walk across the street, but you got to look both ways and you do it every day, all day long. You're like, I just want to cross the road. Well, the one time you do it and you don't look,
Yeah.
you get smashed.
Mhm.
Well, the one time you don't update a server, and guess what? A 0-day attack comes out and you're not patched, you're smashed. That's a very bad day.
Hmm.
So vulnerabilities and that's not just Microsoft patching; it's all of your software. That's where having an automated software program that updates your software comes in very, very handy because they can scan all your devices and say, okay, you have this, 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 and this on it, and then it'll say you need this, this, and this piece of software to patch,
Mhm.
and you go deploy, and there you go, you're set.
So, are there some common um, network security software systems that are commercially available that somebody, if they don't have McAfee or whatever brand, I don't. Is there a system that you recommend people install on their network at a base level?
I would answer that by saying this: it always goes back to cost, right? Software's not cheap. You can't afford to go cheap in software because it will come back and bite you. Best thing to do is get with a cybersecurity guy, come in. If he recommends a top of the line endpoint protection, go with it. You'll be glad that you did.
Yeah, it's fire insurance, right?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely fire insurance.
Yeah.
It's fire, flood, tornado, hurricane, tsunami. It's all that wrapped into one.
Yeah. So this is a little off script, but Jimmy, why? I mean, clearly you're just super passionate about this, and I love that. I mean, you're really, people use the words or the term geek out. I mean, you really geek out on this stuff. You enjoy it. It's kind of cool. What is it about this that makes you so passionate about it and take it so personally?
Taking it so personally. It's kind of like I said on the last one. Someone breaks into your house, you take it personal, right?
Yeah.
Someone broke into my network, and I thought I had things in place that could protect me, and I did. They still got in.
Mm.
I guess the biggest thing is I want to help the guy that doesn't know what he knows what to do, or he doesn't know what to do. And I guess just the nature of the beast. I mean, these guys they're thieves, they're criminals,
Mm.
and they're getting away with it all the time. And I have a hard time with, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. It's tough.
you said on the last episode, that the owner of you work for a large company, the owner personally, you know him well, and you have a relationship, right?
Let me go there. Yeah. So the reason why I'm so passionate is for guys like the owner of our company, great guy, do anything for you. I want to protect his company and his data at all cost. Even when he tells me no, I know that I'm doing what's best for him at the end of the day. And I'm not the guy that does it all the time, but at that point in time, the impact I knew could be very devastating. And so the passion is, man, I gotta protect this for him. He's put his life into this company. He's taking care of me and my family. I mean, that alone right there gives me the drive and the passion and the people that work here. I mean, come on. A lot of good people work here. A lot of good people work at a lot of companies.
Yeah, you're protecting their livelihood. That's
Trying to.
pretty cool.
Even though they don't like it sometimes.
Yeah, I can relate. Trust me. I don't like too many passwords either, but
No, it's like I said, security is uncomfortable, but it sure is comforting.
yeah. Well, and you're the doctor prescribing the pill, the medicine, whatever it is, right? And the physical therapy, even though it's painful and not always comfortable, like you say, it sure probably provides a lot of comfort. So,
Yeah, it does.
so if you're gonna share your takeaway for the listeners, I mean, I think especially if they listen to both of these episodes, they're going to take this seriously, as they well should. But if you were going to just tell them, the takeaway from not only the last episode but this one too, I mean, what would you tell them to remember from what you've experienced personally and directly, and the things that you've been through, and how you can recommend they avoid going through something similar?
Well, I would say protect your data at all cost. Implement controls and policies. Those things add layers of security. Okay. Um, and be prepared for when it happens, because it's going to happen. When I say be prepared, you have to have a disaster recovery plan. What's going to happen is when you get hit, everyone's going to be asking, "What do we do? What do we do?" And if you don't take the right steps, you can make things worse.
Uh,
Number one thing though is protect those backups. Because guess what? If they get in and they infect those backups, you're dead in the water. And nowadays, the first thing they look for is the backup server.
hmm,
It's the very first thing they look for.
yeah, if they can get that, they've got you.
They've
Right.
got you. If they can get that, they've got you.
Hmm.
And look, I don't mean to put fear in you, but I want to scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, sure. You
Probably
you
shouldn't say that.
That's all right, man. I mean, you faced that dragon, and he was breathing fire down your neck, and thank thank goodness you had made some really really good choices years prior.
A lot of that goes back to, consulting with people in the industry that live and breathe it every day. I'm not some mastermind, but I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do, and these guys helped me perfect it. And after the event, my my team going through the recovery process, man, we're able to ask, hey, can we do this? And can we do that? And let's look into this technology. And so it has opened up a world of security that when you look into, you're like, they get in. How do they get in? I mean, they think of every way to get in. And so that's why your IT team is really got to be diligent in security. We're heavily involved in security. It's going to go back to those CFOs and CEOs and presidents having, they gotta support you. And when they support you, it changes the world like never before. And we have that support. Hands down. And it's amazing.
Yeah. I got to imagine it feels pretty good being in your position now where, again, those things worked out in a way that you were able to do your job really, really well when everybody was counting on you. And I'm grateful you're vulnerable enough to share this experience. I know, again, it's not something you want to keep reliving, but it's really cool of you to share this wisdom and these lessons learned with others. So hopefully they can either avoid this altogether, or heaven forbid, if they get hit, they've got a backup in place and a recovery plan that'll keep the doors open and get them back online quickly, like you were.
Yeah, quickly. How fast can you recover? That's the question.
Yeah. Great. Well, any other takeaways? Anything else you want to end with today before we hang it up for this series?
No, I would say this though, that, since our attack, my team, the effort that my team puts in makes me look amazingly incredible. And then my executive staff, they make me look good as well because they're on board with me. And I can't thank them enough for that.
That's fantastic. Well, again, I think construction companies need to have their eyes open and recognize that, just like investment in technology, software, cloud solutions, data management, data collection, all these other pieces, accounting, payroll, job costing, all this other stuff, it all sits on top of the IT infrastructure. And so I think you gotta build the building from the footings and foundation up, and so loosen those purse strings and open up that budget appropriately so that you can invest in the security and get somebody capable like Jimmy or somebody outsourced that has this expertise so they can help protect you and those that you serve within your organization. I know you echo that, Jimmy. I appreciate again you joining us today, and look forward to keeping in touch down the road.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.